Hello Internet, I'm Jackie Fox. Now that I've introduced you to the theory of wotv generations, I want to introduce you to 3 mages to keep an eye on from Generation 2 that got early awakenings. Now, there will most likely be a number of 2nd generation units that will come into the meta later on for different reasons based on who they pair with in the current meta. This is definitely the reason that these characters are doing well. Alright, so just to understand that. But these 3 units were released late into the 2nd generation, so they were kind of at the peak of 2nd generational power, and they've gotten their upgrades pretty early. Now, for all 3 of these girls, I would say that the upgrades were actually not amazing in terms of like the dream ability upgrades, but obviously units that were incredibly powerful stat-wise to begin with, getting the upgraded stats of the Dream Awakening system, they're going to be quite powerful even if you don't give them a massive increase. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, well, that sounds great, but these ladies aren't going to age well over time, are they? Well, they quite possibly could, because none of them, to my knowledge, and we'll see during the video, have their Master Ability 2 yet. So they still have room to grow within the established power levels. They're still not at their peak power for what we know to be available for certain characters. So we could see further awakenings of any of these units over time, and I'm going to check to see if they've gotten them while I do this video. So with that being said, let's get started with the most recent, and that's going to be Dark Fina. So Dark Fina is just an amazing unit. She has 2 downsides, I would say, or at least when she was released, she had 2 downsides. One being that she is a heavy caster, in that she has to wait on cast times for pretty much every ability that she has, including some of her buffs, which usually doesn't happen. Like, one of the, I'm not going to say the slowest casting, but one of the units with the most consistent use of casting times in her kit. Now, as you'll see, there are a number of ways to reduce that, including her TMR, which ain't bad. I mean, that's definitely an effective way to do this, but that's not everything, right? And looking at her master abilities and her dream ability, you'll see that she is very much geared toward increased power. The other was that she is a single target damage dealer, and there are a lot of units right now that are primarily single target damage dealer that aren't as favored as they could be. And the reason is that in the current meta, where, I mean, AoE resistance is increasing. We are getting more and more consistent ways of pushing that higher and higher, especially with newer units. So newer teams, or teams with newer gear, often have more AoE resistance than older setups did. So whereas the meta up to this point has been more about hitting as many people as you can with your attacks, even if you take some damage reduction, the extra value of hitting multiple units has been worth it. But also using kind of wide range debuffs and stuff on those attacks, since units like Black Witch Helena, most famously, had multiple debuffs that she could apply in AoE to entire teams at times. It is a little bit of a disadvantage to be a very selectively, more or less, single target unit. This would be kind of the exception. It's a really powerful skill, and when units group up enough, she is very happy to use this, even though she is a bit more stacked towards single target, especially if she lands Sorcery Strike, and as you can see with its 3 upgrades, including its, oh man, that's all? Well, I mean, it guarantees that it goes through, so this doesn't get reflexed. She's pretty accurate. She has some additional accuracy on the Dream Awakening skill, so 30% hit chance as well. She's already a pretty accurate unit, so this is going to hit, you know, it's going to, this is slightly irrelevant, just because, I mean, yeah, I guess this does deal with Celeste pretty well, but And also Celeste does have high single target resistance. So these two things combined actually deal with Celeste pretty well. But really what you're... Oh, wait. Oh, right. Okay. So one of her big downsides, I think, as a DPS was, even though she could hit evasion units pretty effectively with this even before then, it's going to get even better now because reflex and things of that nature don't trigger. She's also not going to be taking the preemptive damage that so many characters have nowadays, or those 80% chance to trigger counter skills that are activated by buffs. It's going to turn all of that bullshit off for you. So that's great in guaranteeing that this goes through. It's not a guaranteed hit, but that's effectively if you build her well, maybe some silver spectacles if you really need the extra accuracy. This is basically guaranteed hit that's going to be guaranteed even on Yuffie. So this is just a really powerful skill for stopping people. And the thing is, after she's applied this, if they still live, the thing that she's going to do, because she loves to show off, is she's going to kill them with Comet to save AP. Yep. So for one of the ways that people often like to tank through heavy, powerful dark teams is either to apply AoE resistance. That works really well now because there's so many dark teams that layer attacks like Octaslash into Hazard Render into fucking Joker and Little Leela's bullshit, whatever their big AoEs are. Like almost every big dark, like even silencing spell at this point from the regular Little Leela, like they all have a big diamond that they can layer on top of each other. So AoE resistance has worked pretty well, and dark resistance also tends to work pretty well. Now we're seeing with a lot of newer units, we're seeing non-elemental skills come into play. And I'd rather have something like Shadow Flare, I think, from Sephiroth than Comet here. But it is, with her stats, this is actually a pretty good mod. With her stats, especially if someone has already been hit by Sorcery Strike, but often she can one-shot certain units with this from the beginning of the fight. Just absolute brutality already. So she kind of keeps up. Like, one of the other things that I will say kind of kept her back as a damage dealer back in the day is the fact that she just can't get rid of re-raise or courage. So she had positive interactions with light evasion or the evasion comps at the time because she was pretty accurate. But even though she could maybe hit them with a Comet, she couldn't deal with the fact that they could still get one more turn to take her out with courage or with re-raise, or maybe even both in the case of people like Zazan the Unkillable or Elena after she's been buffed by Yuna, things like that. She didn't have any way to deal with that anywhere in her kit from what I'm seeing, and everybody with Dark is going to be running Sephiroth. Like, the other thing I want to say, and like for this unit specifically, okay, so as you can see here, Dark Fina is actually more used in JP than Rafu. That's right. Even though Rafu is apparently the waifu of Dark Fina has never been surpassed by her at any point. And this is likely because so many people had already built her up at that time that she just makes such a perfect third for this team. Now, if we factor out Dark from this equation, we should be able to see the rest of the field quite a bit better. Here she is. Queen Mashery, our second unit. This is because she's an incredible combination with Bradley, and I want to show you why. Because she's just got so... I mean, first of all, this is a pretty good passive. I would say it's not quite up to third generation standards for a DPS. If it was, she would have magic attack penetration perhaps on here as well. But for a second generation DPS, this is quite good. It has pretty good range. I tend to like this skill better, but pretty good range. So her upgraded skill through EX through this is a re-raise. So she's got a CT up re-raise with ability activation time reduced after re-raise. So this gives her a synergy first with the CT up shenanigans of Bradley already. He gets CT up near death because of his sword. She gets CT up after death because of her buffs. They are similar in that respect. But I think the thing that really pushes her forward... where was it? Did I miss this? Okay, she does have an increased chance to hit move. I'm not necessarily sure that she's super accurate, but she does have that. This is an interesting buff heal, but I think her ability to just carpet bomb people is pretty helpful. She has broader AoEs than Bradley, so she does clean up incredibly well with this job. If somehow you manage to keep her behind, she could function as a healer support. I don't think she's going to do it, but she could. Didn't really... I mean, we have Guard Haste, potentially. Comet for non-elemental damage. Meteor plus for a lot more non-elemental damage. Especially if they have a haste up. So then I guess it's just Queen's Gambit, her LB. So if you think about it, there's about 4 or 5, let's say 4 different ways to reduce damage, right? You have barriers, you have elemental resistance, you have attack type resistance, and then you have defense and spirit. Bradley has defense penetration. He has slash attack resistance penetration. He can break barriers, and she can reduce earth resistance. So there is no way to wall Bradley if you have her on the team. I think this is actually a pretty good argument for Oberon as well. Because he actually, in his sub job, I thought she had another skill that did it. I really did think that she had multiple casts of something that reduced that, but I guess it's just the one, which is unfortunate. Oberon's not often run. Well, I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you're running on your Oberon for sub job. But in his secondary, I think one of his top skills actually is a repeatable way of AoE breaking earth resistance alone, which actually does stack with his limit break and is just a way that he can fucking tunnel into a tank. Absolutely. But the reason that I would say that Queen Mashery is definitely a better unit for this team than Oberon, even though I think he would work pretty well as a second, as kind of a backup choice for her, is that she also allows you to diversify the damage types. So while Bradley is quite the penetrator, at the same time, there are some units that just stack enough shenanigans on top of each other that if he doesn't really have his A game up in terms of being a tank buster, he might have a little bit more trouble than he should getting through a tank like Alphonse. This is something I've experienced a number of times in Arena, where he'll do a lot of damage to Alphonse, but won't be able to take him out. And if that means that I get the turns to take him out before he can deal damage again, I have a pretty good chance against that team. If not, I'm going to lose. Bradley is not unbeatable for an Alphonse strike team. But if you throw Queen Mashery onto the team, suddenly he melts. Suddenly Esther just completely melts. There are not that we should necessarily be talking about lightning units, but just as an offensive team or as a defensive team, it is better to give them no easy way to build resistance against you. And she does a lot of things that he doesn't. She attacks in different ways than he does. Therefore, you would have to build resistances for both of them, even if you could keep Bradley from like re-upping his ways of getting around your resistance. Because I'm actually not even sure this unit is listed. Oh, there she is. 25th right at the bottom of the rankings, Resnick. And this is pretty impressive that she's still up there in JP, because she is an absolute dream now. I mean, she didn't even need a Dream Awakening to be a dream unit, and then she got it. So it's just entirely superfluous, and she's gonna come back to kick more ass when she gets her MA2, I'm absolutely sure. But now that I've mentioned that, and before I transition all the way over into talking about Resnick, let me actually back up to the beginning, because I made a promise in the opening. Let's see what happens. Dark Fina has not yet, or will not have, a Master Ability 2 within the next 4 months. Probably because she's dominating the meta. Why would you give it to her now? Like, she's already kicking ass. She doesn't need anything. She is the second most used unit in the game by a wide margin. She doesn't need it. That makes perfect sense. Queen Mashery, maybe there's a chance. No, she doesn't have it yet either, so she still has that yet to come for herself as well. What about Resnick? Resnick does get an MA2, so this is actually wow. Wait, I forgot how to read these for a second. So 10% magic, 10 defense, and 10 spirit. That's fucking solid. That's pretty great. As a devout, she has ways of getting her defense and spirit up pretty high. Not that it's as relevant as it used to be, because people are able to penetrate it more, but she can get those numbers up pretty good, which can ensure that if she does end up taking some damage, she can survive it. Pretty great upgrade as an MA2. That should be coming, wait, 8? Right. 3883, right. That's what, July? So that should be coming this summer, her MA2, for the extra 10 magic, 10 defense, and 10 spirit. Now, let's talk about why this girl is good. For one, if you just put her with a really stubborn unit, she will keep them alive. It helps if they have some sort of a survivability gimmick, like courage, to help keep them alive. Oh, Skahal! Yeah, I'm actually curious where Skahal's at in the meta. I'm going all the way to 1st gen with this guy. Omnilus, Dialto, Elena, Dwayne, Warrior of Light, Eliza, Edward, Kefka, Ferris, Alphonse, Oprah, Jade, Locke, interesting, Vega, Snow, was that Reagan, Engelbert, Charlotte, Sweetheart Ildira, Skahal. Where are you at? 45th in the rankings. You got beat by Charlotte. If anybody plays JP or watches live JP PvP, is Skahal not a thing anymore? And what actually managed to knock him out as a thing? I'm super curious about that, because it looks like, at least from the point of view of his support, she's only getting better. She's been upgraded twice since he got his courage passive upgrade that's made him viable up until now, I guess, and into the future. But she's just a really good unit for like initial buffs, and then once they lose some she can boost their HP before they even get into battle while increasing her healing power. This really gets her ready for the fight. And then she has this heal that increases their agility, their attack, and their magic. So offensive power and agility, which translates pretty well into offensive and defensive power. So this is just an amazing single target heal. And then just really goes hard on that. I kind of, well, dispel all debuffs. I'll trade that for the agility. Fine. I wish you didn't make me choose, but I'm okay with that. But this is kind of the same concept on a Diamond AoE. It's an amazing skill, because it's like they hit their second wind harder than they hit their first wind. It's like you hit a threshold with their units where they just became even more dangerous. This is, as I've said before, kind of the inverse of Sylvie's LB, where it's like you thought they were hard to kill before, they just got so much worse. Unlike Sylvie, though, she has no way to bring people back to life, but she can steal time, which is interesting for manual shenanigans, especially in PvE. I think these are the 3 units that people should really be looking at upgrading. These are, if you're playing their element, the best way to upgrade your chances of winning, because these are they're just standout units that are still super relevant to the meta because they were just kind of in the right place. And like, I love the fact that the 200 cost units still don't have MA2s, because that again means that your investment in them now is likely to pay off additional dividends far beyond what we can see in JP when they get a power increase with that MA2 in the future. So it just makes me really excited for all of these units. Maybe a little bit less for Resnick because she's already going to get that. Maybe a little bit more for Resnick because she's going to get that sooner. I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, I think pushing a 90 cost unit through the cycle so that they hit the peak of their power earlier and kind of fade off sooner, I think that's a really smart way to play it out between these 3 ladies, because it would make sense that the 100 cost units such as Queen Mashery and Dark Fina would still have like additional room to grow and be able to maintain their place in the meta. I mean, I still see units like Ruinstern being used on Dark Slash teams, especially. Like, he's really popular with Sephiroth and, say, Dwayne. Maybe he's not used. I mean, shit, Dwayne's a Generation 1 unit that has been upgraded into relevance. I was actually kind of surprised to see him on JP, but I guess it was good enough to even be relevant there. And it was a pretty good upgrade. I do still actually use it, so you can't argue with results, I guess. But those are definitely 3 units to keep an eye on. 3 units that you should feel very safe in investing in, because I think that they have incredibly bright futures, even though they aren't the newest units. So if you didn't get that pity that you wanted, or you had to go all the way, and now you have no viz, or, you know, whatever your war story is, you probably have one of the 3 of these, and they are excellent builds if you do play their element. And if you play a different element, because there are 5 more, tell me in the comments. We'll maybe have a vote on this or something. I'll count any submissions in the comments. Just tell me what elements you play and what elements you would like to see, like what 2nd generation unit has the most value going into the future. What unit might you awaken into new levels of power? Because I could make a couple other easy calls, but I'm going to save that to the next video and leave you to the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe while you're down there. Check out the description. There's a bunch of useful links. And now that I've said that, I get to say I'll see you in the next one.